Welcome back. In this video, we're going to create our first 3D model in Blender. It's going to be a chair. And while it's not that complex of a model, it can be challenging for a beginner, especially because you're getting used to all the shortcuts and everything that you want to use in Blender. So without further ado, let's get started and jump right in. First off, I'm going to close this image and go back into Blender. And here I've already deleted all the assets in my scene. You should by now be able to do that yourself. Next up, I want to click one on my numpad to go to frontal view, and then click on Shift A, go to image and add a reference image. With our reference image added to our scene, we can now move it to the back so we can kind of look at it while we're modeling. And now focus on our 3D model. The first thing I'm going to do is click on Shift A, add a mesh, add a cube, click on N on my keyboard. And I just noticed that the keyboard shortcuts were not working. So let me fix that before we continue. I'm going to put this on the center. And I believe that's going to keep working even if I close the items and the tool menus. Okay, great. So with our cube added, I want to go into edit mode by clicking Tab on my keyboard. I'm just going to select the bottom face by clicking 3, or going here and clicking on the face select. And I'm going to make sure that my Move Select Items button is selected. I'm going to move this up right here. And you're going to notice during this video that we're not going to focus on measurements. I don't really want you to worry about measurements at all while you're working on this chair. The reason is simple, because the moment you start focusing on measurements, you're going to have too many numbers running through your head, too many things to keep in mind while modeling, and it's really going to slow down your learning process when it comes to learning shortcuts and how to do stuff. So we're now really focused on the creative aspect and have fun creating this chair, regardless of how weird it looks, okay? All right, let's jump back in. So I'm gonna now move out of edit mode, and I'm gonna move this part a bit to the top. And we have this floating origin point right now. Gonna click F3 on my keyboard. You can search for origin to geometry and click on it. That's going to move the origin point back to the center of this geometry. All right. Next up, we're going to click on Shift A and add another cube to our scene. Going to click N on my keyboard, and here you can see all the transform options. And basically, I could edit it here, but what I want to do is simply click S on my keyboard, hold Shift, click Z on my keyboard to lock the Y and X axis, and simply just move my mouse till I get a size that I find fitting when it comes to the width of my chair legs. Now I'm going to move this up, and I could try to align this, but that's not really going to work. So to do that, I'm going to turn on Snap Target to Vertex. And now I can simply snap to a specific vertex in my scene. Let's make this leg a bit shorter, something like this. That looks much better. Okay, so I want to duplicate this, but what I want to do is make sure that any adjustments I make on this model is applied to the duplicated model too. If you right click on an object, you have the option to duplicate objects or duplicate linked. So Shift D or Alt D. In this case, we want to use Alt D to duplicate linked. That means that anything I do now here is going to get applied to this model too. Great. I'm going to select this once again, and now I just want to simply just duplicate it. So with that done, Shift D, I'm just going to move this one backwards. And now I'm going to click on it, Alt D, and move it to this side. With these two selected, I'm going to click on Tab to go into edit mode. And I'm just going to move this up. Now, once we feel we have reached a height that kind of makes sense, we can stop and we can continue from there. Next up, I want to bring this part of our sitting area a bit to the front. Great, this looks much better. Now let's add the top part here. And we could simply do that by, once again clicking on Shift A and adding a cube. But we could also just simply copy this part by clicking Shift D, going into edit mode, and adjusting it till we get the shape that we want. Now, well, we're not there yet. It's starting to shape up a bit and start to look a bit like the chair that we're creating. So let's continue and add all the details. Once again, I'm going to click on Shift A, add a cube, go to edit mode. I'm going to adjust this cube. Once again, this is all freehand. We're not going to use any measurements. We're just doing some modeling. I think this is an important aspect to keep in mind and get used to, because modeling has two parts. The part where you're being creative and the part where you're being technical. And in this case, we are being creative. All right. So F3, origin to geometry. And I'm going to click on Alt D to duplicate this and bring this to the back. I'm just going to place it right here, maybe a bit more to the front. Shift D to duplicate it without it being linked. R on my keyboard to rotate, clicking Z to lock the Z axis, 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the keyboard. And then I'm just simply going to move this over here and over here. Now, if you want to snap something, you might notice that, let's say you want to snap this corner to this side. If I were to now go here, that's not going to work. It's always going to snap the closest vertex to the closest connecting vertex. So a way to solve that is I always move it to the other side, where these two are the closest, and then I move it to where I want it to snap. And just like that, you can have it snap and be exactly where you want it to be. Now I'm going to do Alt D, move this to this side, and have it snap right here. Now, while we are almost there, it's time to focus a bit on the shape of our model. So far what we really did was just use cubes and, add all the basic details. So for now, we can add some information to clean our scene up, because all we're seeing here is cube, 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 cube. But for now, let's add some names. So front, right leg, front, left leg. And I'm always looking at the model from the back side. So this is going to be the left side, left leg, right leg, etc. So just adding names. You can name them however you want, as long as you stay organized, right? So and I wouldn't even mind merging these, but for now, let's just give them a name as a good practice. Okay, so now all of our models have a name. But if you were to expand this, you see that the mesh itself is still called Cube 1. So technically you would want to give this a name too if you're working with game engines, but don't worry about that for now. We just want to stay organized in Blender for the time being. Okay, with the names added and our basic shapes added, it's time to add some detail to our model and really turn this into this as close as we can get. So what I want to get started with is the large bevels that we're seeing here, here, and here. The moment we do that, we can afterwards move on adding sub-details like making sure that the spacing is correct. So let's start here. Click on the tab button to go into edit mode. Click 2 on the keyboard to go to the edge select and select these 4 edges here. And then click on Control B to add a bevel. And you can now move your middle mouse, wheel up or wheel down, to add segments. But something like this is fine. And once we've added it, we can expand the bevel options here at the bottom and maybe turn this into 12 pieces. Now you're still seeing these kind of gradient lines. So right click and click Shade Out to Smooth. And afterwards, what we can do is go to the modifiers, add modifier, search bevel, add a bevel modifier, put this on 2, and put this on 0.05 to also add a bevel on the edges. Okay. Now we could do the following. We could manually add these bevels to all of these pieces, but we can also simply just make sure that we copy all the details from this. So to do that, first make sure that your scale is set to 1. So we have to make sure that we select our model, Control A, or go to Object, Apply Rotation and Scale. But for now, let me add Control A and just apply rotation and scale on all these. And make sure that everything is 1, 1, 1. This way, when we're using a modifier, it's not really going to, create artifacts or issues. Because if your scale is different, then it means that the amount that you're putting here is going to look different. Okay, with that said, let's select everything. Well, not everything, basically this whole model. And let me just deselect this because you want to select this as last and then select it. Control L and then copy modifiers. And now we have added bevel to all of our pieces. Great, that looks much better. Let's also fix this part because here we see that we have these large rounded corners. So I'm going to click on edit mode, select these 4 pieces. And before I do anything, I just want to kind of stretch this a bit. So I'm going to click on S and then I'm going to click on X on my keyboard and just move my mouse a bit. And now I'm going to click on Control B and add the same segments as here. With that added, I can now do the following. I actually made a mistake here because if you look at this image, we see that it has a bend to it. It kind of goes inwards. Now by adding the bevel modifier first, I cannot that easily add edge loops. So the moment I do, it just happens here, but it's no longer connecting with this part because while this top part's still a polygon, this is now an n-gon because it has more than 4 vertices. So I'm going to go back by clicking Control Z. And first I'm going to split this up by doing Control R and adding maybe something like this. So we add a loop cut of 10, which looks fine. And now I can go here, add my bevel, great. And afterwards, I can just select this, make sure that my proportional editing is on, and I can turn this off. Just simply move this backwards. And while you're doing this, you can expand or scale up or scale down the circle, which affects the connecting pieces. So I'm just gonna bend this something like this. Great. And then I'm gonna move this to the front by turning off edit mode, going to object mode. But I'm gonna fix my origin first. Great. So we're gonna move this to here. And we're gonna turn on shade smooth to make this all look a bit better. Okay. So we do have the issue here that if you look at this, one second, if you look at this model, that our legs or back arms are kind of stretching out at the top. So I do want to bring these down a bit. And afterwards, I also want to make sure that by selecting both of them and going into the edge select, I bring these two back a little so it looks more naturally connecting to the back piece. Now the issue that we are running into here is that this now doesn't really look that good. So we have these two pieces that really don't connect well. Now what we could simply do is just go into edit mode and then hold set to go to wireframe. Just select this piece and just expand it. And also the same for here. We are also going to do it for these two parts. And now I'm also going to bring this a bit more to the back by going to the top by clicking 7 and then clicking Z to go into wireframe mode. I'm going to select this and just bring this back maybe all the way here. Let's see how that looks. That doesn't look that good, but this is better. Next up, we're going to bring this to the inside. We can do that two ways. We can select both of these, click S, and then simply just bring them inwards a bit. Maybe something like this. Okay. Now let's also fix these two, because as you can see here, they're underneath the sitting area, and in our design, they're not. So there's two things that we can do. We can move these inwards, a bit like this, and maybe move them a bit to the inner side, like this. Now, while this looks okay, the issue is that it really no longer makes sense because now this part is not connecting. So the best way to do that is just to go back and selecting this top piece, going into edit mode, clicking Z to see the wireframe, just selecting this by clicking, going into wireframe, just dragging over this area. And you have to make sure that this is on select box here at the top. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And then just expanding this a bit so it kind of comes over that whole area. And I'm also going to scale this a bit on a specific axis. And now it all looks much better. So when you're working on these kind of models where you don't have measurements, you have to really trust your intuition and really try to get as much detail as you can without, you know, having the measurements. All right, with that said, we now have a model that looks kind of okayish. Of course, the best thing would have been to have the measurements. from my perspective, if I go into one, I see that this side might be a bit longer to kind of give that sense that the chair is also a bit taller. So let's expand these a bit, maybe to here, and move this up. And we might want to make all these 4 legs a bit longer at the bottom as well. So I am going to click on one on my keyboard, click Z to go into wireframe, and then I'm just going to expand this a bit. Then I'm going to go into solid by holding Z. Great. So just like that, we have created our own chair. Now, if you want to create your own, or if you want to have the fun playing around, by all means, please do so. Really feel free to test things, see how it works for you, and try things that make sense. And eventually, once you feel comfortable enough, feel free to move to the next video. For now, this is the only part that we're going to cover in this video, and I'll see you in the other one.